I'm highly spiritual. 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 I'm highly spiritual.
Peace and love, friends and family. Welcome back to another episode of the Highly Emotional Podcast. Today I'm here with a creative genius, a spiritual leader, Jaymee Carpenter. Welcome to the Highly Emotional Podcast. You like that?
I'm laughing because I think there's former egoic versions of myself that have been kind of waiting for this day, waiting to be called such things. And what I didn't know when I started the spiritual path is that it would lead me to a place of when those things are being said about you, you're not identified with it and you can't get high on it, you know? So I appreciate your view of how you see me. And if anything, the leader thing, the spiritual leader, I would say if that's the case, I found a way to lead without leading, you know.
That's deep.
You know, taking the active, you do this and this is the way the world works and blah, blah, blah. That was the conditioning that I had to get out of in this life, of knowing what was sort of commonly referred to as right and wrong. And I found that no such right or wrong exists, you know, in my path, and no such leader exists really. You know, the true ones lead without leading. And I'm trying to be more like that if I am to lead anything at all.
I mean, for sure. I think that's because of the terms. I'm big and I'm an extremist when it comes to terms. So when we hear these terms leader, based upon the societal construct of how our America standards are, is that when
Right.
you say leader, you think of like presidency. And
Yeah.
so when we think about that, you hear leader and it's kind of like, oh, you tell this person to do this and tell this person to do that. But then when you look at what a leader meant to civilizations of people besides or before this matrix construct, when they
Uh-huh.
spoke about a leader, he was at the front of the battlefield. And
Right.
he was
There
he
you
was
go.
in there dying before anybody else was, or at least putting it all on the line.
That's right. That's
So when
right.
so when
Exactly.
I say leader, what I mean is that by who you are, who you showing up as on camera, off camera, and how you represent yourself in your authentic form in your reality
Hmm.
is a leader. So that's what I mean by leader. And that's what we have to do is we have to accept when we are in the position to lead. This quote I've been hearing lately is um, when the student is ready, the teacher presents itself, right? And I also believe that that's flipped also on the other side of it too, is that the student presents itself when the teacher is ready to be a teacher.
Very.
So on that point, you are a leader, man, for sure. You're a leader. So
Well, you know what? I have to say, I'd feel scared for you if I wasn't living consciously with myself and watching myself in all my actions. And I believe in myself. I believe in when I say I believe in myself, I don't believe in the construct version of a Jamie. I just believe in there's something that people call Jamie that I call Jamie. I'm not trying to be some, you know, I'm not trying to bypass my name, you know, spiritually bypass any area of my life. But, you know, people say Jamie in the direction of me, and that's a name that, you know, that I'm associated with. But, um, you know, I'm basically I'm having a going out of business sale of Jamie. That's what my spiritual path has been, is sort of uh, grinding down all the areas of a continuing life story that has preferences, and those preferences, I believe, are what we're all fighting about in this world. Is how strong preferences in our identities, that we exist from the place of thought and bundles of thought created into identities, and they've just been rehearsed over time. And that was what I was. I was a continuing story most of my life, and it was like starting to be a pretty damn good one. I mean, like Oprah kind of Oprah level, like somebody that you'd have on that show, where it's like, what, you survived Skid Row and homelessness and addiction and blah blah blah. Now you're doing this kind of thing, and I thought that was all very great. And over the last 12 years, I've just been trying to get rid of all of my ideas of who I think I am, and
Mm.
completely be almost an interrupted self over and over again. Um, and and what makes that interesting is that you would think that that would become very bland, you know, that once you start getting rid of your life story, you start looking at what does it mean even to get rid of your life story, having a going out of business sale of that. It's it's the claim that any part of it is valid still if I don't choose, you know. And I just believed that I was this, and this is what I do, and this is my gifts, and blah blah blah, and this is the family I come from, and that's what we all believe. But that continuing story creates division. And what I've had to do over the last 12 years is look through everything that I was identifying with, including all the virtuous parts, and seeing if I could give that up also to God, the universe, if I could just surrender all of that, and what would I be if all of that was sort of not so important, in a conversation, if listening became more important, rather than speaking about my life story.
Mm.
I don't want to put anybody down who's out there talking a lot, because that's how I got here. And
Yeah.
I'm talking a lot right now, but and furthering their story and finally getting their story out. It's a beautiful thing that we have all these platforms now to share our story. So I'm not shitting on any of that. It was my path, certainly, was like telling the story and helping other people with the story and all that kind of thing. And you could just hang out there the rest of your life and be a storyteller,
Mm.
and have a virtuous life. And I just haven't been satisfied enough, because whenever I hang out too long in something, I find that there's more things to give up. There's more things to let go of. There's more things that get in the way of interpersonal relationships.
Mm.
So I've just been in this systematic cutting down all the areas of my life story. And when I say cutting them down, I mean examining them with a fine-tooth comb. Everything that's happened to me, in the subtlest forms to the most pronounced. Looking at all of that, seeing if I can loosen up my identity with that, and so I can listen better. So I can listen truly without having something to say right away. You know,
Mm.
that's what people are doing now. The storytelling is this, and then it triggers another storyteller, and then everybody's talking at the same time these days, and interrupting has become like normal. And podcasts and content are editing content to make it look like there's no gaps in between people's speech. And it's being force fed to us as like this is normal. In the same way that like 10 years ago, podcast podcasts were kind of just on the rise and not everybody listened to them. And you could tell if somebody did, because they had all these talking points at a party. They might be talking about mushrooms or microdosing or cold plunging or whatever.
Punchlines. It's punchlines. That's exactly what it is. It's punchlines. Oh yeah, let me tell you about this time that I did shrooms and I did ayahuasca and
Yeah.
ego death. You got to get rid of your. It's like
Oh,
it becomes a script. It becomes
yes.
such a script to the point where we say, okay, well, are you the ego death guy? Are you the like?
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
I get what you're saying, and the thing about it is like there's an extreme way to say it is like, oh, I'm getting rid of my ego, but I feel like that's the incorrect term to directly say. I
Right.
think that what it's supposed to be like is a sense of, instead of saying that I watched the movie of Jamie up until this point, you go back and you rewatch it, and then you learn things about yourself which you missed in the first couple runs that you seen it. So every time that I watch The Matrix, I might pick up something else like, "Yo, did you notice this kid in the background?" Or it's like
Yeah.
that. So when you start realizing that you're not just the direct situation that you went through, you are the entire experience on both sides. And so
Right.
therefore it goes back to always being a student, even if you are the teacher, because
That's right.
you have to be a student. You have to be in a sense of where you can listen to learn. Although I have my story and you have your story, it's an exchange. It's a
Yes.
direct exchange. Although we have a common ground of trauma, right?
Yeah.
There's still something that you may display to me in which I can just learn. I can
Right.
learn and then go back and reread or read watch my memories, and then
Mhm.
I can say, oh shit, this memory that I overlooked, that I didn't even add to my script of, oh, I went through this and I went through that. This
Yeah.
was a key point more than my depression. This was a key point to this and that. So, I mean, I agree with you 100% as far as being the student. So, how did you say, like, did you find yourself like, in your spiritual journey where you was like, bro, I'm trying too much to be fucking spiritual. I'm trying too much to be perfect. I'm trying too much to display uh my ego's gone or anything along those lines?
Yeah, it was just an accomplishment. I think at least for me, I sensed early on in my household that there was disharmony. And I didn't have to sense too hard. I mean, there was just, my parents were loving people, but they weren't meant for each other long term. And they might have even been brought together just to have me and my brother
Mm,
and bounce, like a contract. I believe that these contracts exist, these soul contracts to bring
absolutely.
children in. And so far, I've been in all humility, my life has ended up being a blessing of return to my family. The work that I've done, I feel like has rippled. I could trace it. It's rippled down into my living family, and I believe that whenever we heal something that's an ancestral wound or a curse, that it ripples down into all areas of the family, who were affected by that. And I even asked my Tibetan teacher, Lama Lanang Rinpoche. Um, I asked him, I was like, hey, with reincarnation, so say we were in a family where there was the ancestral wound of sexual abuse, and then
That's
we
a
die.
big one. That's a big
Yeah,
one.
and that's that. I don't know if you and I have that in common, but I have that in my family. That's my
Same, same.
yeah. So, I asked him, I was like, so when we die and we go somewhere else to another family or another form, wherever we are, if somebody does the work and frees that aspect up of the bloodline, does it reach them in their new family, in their new incarnation even? Do they get free even there if they were linked to it? And he just very simply said yes. And I didn't, expect that. I didn't expect he'd have an answer for that. But basically, healing is healing wherever there's discord or disharmony in any situation. Once an individual brings that, much like Luke Skywalker or something in the Star Wars lore, bringing balance to the universe kind of thing. I believe we can do that to the bloodline, and ultimately it's a karmic situation, what we find ourselves in. But um, so I forget. Yeah, I guess I forget where we were.
It's all good. I'm just listening. I'm picking up on different things.
Yeah.
One thing that I my brother said this, but then it made so much sense is that he said that um if we are non-existence in a sense to the universe, right? On our scale of human existence, in a sense we are dreams of God.
Oh, I love
And
that.
so I was like, fuck, this makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
So we hold on to our perspective, our life journey, and we think that this is the truth, right? This is set in the stone, this is real, and whatnot. So it's like we in a sense take ownership to our journey, we hold on to it, and then when we hear someone say something just like the breaking of the curses and whatnot, it sounds like this mystical thing or this overpowerful thing. So then when
Right.
you explain it, like I explained certain things about understanding the ego or having a spiritual breakthrough or being conscious to my daughter, and she's like,
Yeah.
it's so simple, everybody's acting like it's mystical and magical, it's just logical. And I was
Yeah.
like, that's the thing, is that
Right.
when people hear a lot of us who are on our spiritual journeys, it sounds like this false reality, this made
Hmm.
up, oh, he's seeing spirits and this and that. And I was like, well, that's not that's not what it all means. It doesn't mean that these stones have power. It doesn't mean that this bowl and all that's not what gives it power. It
Right.
starts with me.
Yeah.
I'm the device, the dream of God that
Right.
gives this shit power in my reality. So when I'm
Yeah.
saying that I'm breaking curses, it's because I'm conscious of the curses that I'm breaking. I
Yeah.
know that, hey, yo, somebody in our family, whether it was me, cousin, so on and so forth, somebody may have gotten molested. So now that I'm conscious of this situation, I say it's not gonna fucking happen on my accord. So I'm
Right.
gonna bring awareness and I'm gonna tell my kids, hey, you can't stay over nobody's house unless you are this age or this, or it
Right.
has to make sense, because I am sent to break the curses, because I am conscious of
Right.
the things that happen, whether it's in my reality or it happened to someone else telling me a story. But
Yeah.
people think that it's this mystical situation,
Right.
but all it is just it's just consciousness, bro.
Yeah. Well, the curse that I talk about in to further your point about it sort of just being the math of the universe.
Mm,
It's more like the math.
I like that.
And a curse could be another word for in what in science we call genetic predisposition. So something happens to somebody, and just like a hummingbird, you know, it took them hundreds of thousands, or I don't know if it's millions or whatever it is. It took them so long to grow that beak. They didn't start off with the long thing. And it was because there was a need. There was a flower that they couldn't get down into. There was these flowers that they just couldn't reach down there. And so over time, they evolved this desire to get to the bottom of the flower to get that sweet nectar down there. Over time, just the desire and showing up to it, these hummingbirds were genetically predisposed to grow this beak to
Mm,
meet the need, you know? So in that same way, if somebody in our family is sexually abused or it starts somewhere and they live with that pain and it doesn't get resolved, what happens to, I don't know, what's the difference between a cow that exercises and a cow that just stands around all the time? There's something in the energy of the meat, let's just call it, that's in the physiology of the body
mm-hmm,
that's different. When there's an energy distribution in one cow and movement and all that, and muscle and sacrifice and stuff like that, we would call that a healthy being. We would call
mm-hmm,
it having a good life,
mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
and you might even that cow might be having a completely different experience than the next cow, and likely is the one that's just standing around and doesn't do those things. And so that cow, if it has a child, it may all of the physiology and everything's been affected by the emotional condition of the being.
mm-hmm,
And we ignore this as an aspect of it, of life. And we go, oh, curses, or what do you mean? Like, or addiction, like if one person experiences strong addiction and it doesn't get absolved in a lifetime and they pass it on to a child, which means like their limited amount of emotional maturity in a life as a parent, it passes that on to the child. It might even pass on the abuse,
mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
and this just goes on and on. And this is this genetic predisposition that we talk about, which is the same as what we're talking about here as far as a curse in the bloodline,
Yeah.
you know? So there's that. And then you always say so many provocative things that like that get me into wanting to talk about things. But so there's that. And then, gosh, there was another thing that you said a minute ago. Well, it's fine. Let's roll with it.
No, I think that so when we hear these curses, people
Mhm.
always think like they think so bad, like I've gotten to the point where I'm living in a quantum reality, and this is kind of like where
Huh.
I've been lately. And what I realize is that certain events right? So I'm gonna say something extreme. So 9/11, right?
Uh-huh.
It had to happen, right? Whether it's a conspiracy, whether we did it, they did it, somebody
Understood.
mama did it, whatever it is, it had to happen because in whatever sense it brought awareness to the world. I would say for me, something like 9/11 had to happen because then I watched Zeitgeist. And
Mm,
Zeitgeist pretty much enhanced my spiritual journey to where I started questioning everything. And then
mm,
that put me on the path of seeking knowledge. So
mm.
if a situation like 9/11 didn't happen, and you know, this sounds blasphemous or negative to whoever doesn't overstand or understand what I'm saying or quantum stand it, right? So this may sound negative, but I'll say that if that did not happen, then I
Mm,
would not be in the place where I am now to be comfortable and share my experience, my knowledge, my truth. And
right.
I would think that if I didn't stumble across Zeitgeist, I would still be in the societal construct of black culture or hoodism or anything along those lines because in those cultures, if I speak like this, especially you talking about a culture of people that is backed by Christianity, forced Christianity at that point.
Yeah.
So, so when we say this, I would think that it would be feminine of me, weak of me, right? Is how I'm using this term feminine,
Okay.
weak of me if I displayed my emotions or if I even talked about meditation or talked about questioning all the religions or all this stuff, I wouldn't have been okay with it. So then you have to say these events, although on the big scale, you know, people may have died and whatnot, you know, rest in peace to their soul for anybody who may get offended or lost somebody. But
Sure.
this event had to happen because now you have someone like me who was inspired by learning how that situation happened. And then now here I am at 35 years old, sitting here telling people, hey, find God within you. Think about how that a situation like that that's catastrophic and so
Yeah.
big can change the trajectory of how I show up on my
Yeah.
everyday life. So now I didn't broke out of hood cultures and popping pills and having sex with random women, and I'm talking about God all the time even when I don't think or I'm trying to talk about God. It just happens. so
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
these type of events, these what do we call them, curses, these
Uh-huh.
low vibrational situations have to happen because they spread awareness, and that's the importance of understanding and going beyond duality like they talk about in Buddhism, is
Yeah.
that you have to understand, or like I said, overstand, quantum stand, um, why these things are happening and how it helps push you to the next level of your journey of self.
Right.
So
Yeah, that's I agree. I agree. My thing is love is the author, right? You know this.
yeah,
And what I mean by that is love is the author of the universe, of every experience that you can have. And I know that that's even difficult for some people, to hear that, how is a rape or how is 9/11 a loving situation, and
yeah.
I'm not saying that it was motivated by love. I'm not saying any of those things were.
I'll go deeper, but what if it was?
Well,
What if it was motivated? And let's say let's go
it,
extreme.
it is.
Revenge
I
is
know what you mean.
motivation from
Right.
love.
Right, exactly. You're right, exactly. So that's basically it, is that you can strip anything down and anyone down to innocence. I believe that everyone is innocent. Everyone.
Same.
If we took any of these components, if we took the hijackers of 9/11 out and we listened to their life story and we saw how they were raised and we saw all the different components and what went into their experience, and much like us in this country, when something affects us in our immediate circle of compassion,
Mhm.
we most of the time want to bring justice. We want to see that justice is served in a variety of ways that are.
Which is revenge, which is, believe it or not, on the most like blunt it's revenge. I didn't mean
Yeah.
to cut your wisdom, but I get
No,
so
no.
upset when I hear people like during like court trials, right? Like you'll get this guy who killed these people, right? And the judge be like, "Well, when you get to jail, they're gonna have their way with you and this and that." And I'm like, "Bro, what the fuck? Like you didn't like you're using jail as revenge." And it kind of bothers me, although I understand justice should be
Yeah,
served or balance of the scales, however you want to put it. But
yeah,
when you say it like that, it makes me feel uncomfortable because you're not seeking rehabilitation, you're
right.
seeking revenge. So you're saying, bluntly, oh, if this person goes to jail, well, they're gonna have their way with you. And it's just like, I don't think that because you'll see this is such a touchy situation because you'll have this family, they lost this person and they're praying to God like, God, my child has went to heaven and this and that, like it's a very like religious spiritual type of situation.
Sure,
But
sure.
if
Those
you are
people are innocent too. The people who are the revenge seekers are absolutely innocent. And that's your illustration. And that's what I mean.
facts.
So it is love. You're right. It is love misguided in a way. It's love mixed with anger,
Yes.
which I don't know if we can say is just pure love anymore. But love has motivated everything. Love is motivate. Like there was a need that we all had when we were children.
Mm-hmm.
Some of those connections got plugged in and others didn't, and they were just dangling loose, and we found places to connect those needs for connection, and those things can lead to ideologies, those things that we sought outside of maybe the home. And it just goes this way, or somebody's killed and it's you're treated less than because of your color,
Mm-hmm.
whatever it may be.
Mm-hmm.
And then we just go, well, I want to see this person, whoever is responsible for this, punished, or the more popular thing is to rid them of the earth, just completely take them off the planet,
Mm-hmm.
as if and I do understand the notion of wanting to just have one of God's ideas, potentially, if they've hurt you enough, just not have to think about that anymore, ever hurting anyone again or anything like that. All of the thoughts that motivate somebody wanting revenge are all understandable. And this is what I mean about the innocence, is that if we all had our Joker movie where, you saw the prequel, you saw
Mm-hmm.
what led up to this. If
Mm-hmm.
each person, any enemy that you have, if you saw their life and you saw it from an objective place where you could just see the components that were involved, and you kind of know what caring is in this life and where it's not. If you were to look into any situation of any person, all the serial killers also, who I'm not saying should be released
Yeah,
or
we're not. That's not what we're saying. I wouldn't do if I was in their shoes. I'm not saying I would do the same or I would do it differently. It's just the fact is like there's a deeper script or a different story when you flip the coin. Because think about it like this. Let's go superheroes, right? Batman, let's say Batman kills the Joker, but the Joker has a son. Well, now who's the villain? Every
exactly.
hero in some aspect is the villain. And
That's right.
so I agree with what you're saying. There is no pure bad person. There's no such thing as a bad dog. You get what I'm
Right.
saying? It's all about how you were taught and your perspective may be led by childhood trauma. That's just the origin of your story.
Absolutely. And, I think to forgive the person who sexually abused me, which is something that is not an easy thing to come by in this life. You have to go out of your way and inconvenience yourself emotionally in order to forgive somebody. And in order for me to do that, I had to take a look at an inventory of myself. I had to write down all the things that I've been doing in this life, and none of them were sexual abuse. Thank goodness. It's ended with me, I want to say.
As a
That
should.
it's now reflected in my children. They were already ages older than I was when I was abused, or when my mother when she was abused, and so on and so forth. Like it really does repeat itself, and then it ends, and you can see it clearly in your children. And I've been able to see that in my children. So, but in order to do it, to get there, I had to look at all the areas of my life where I wasn't sexually molesting people, but I was molesting the truth, you know? I was molesting uh, sort of integrity, you know? I was like trying to make it work my way and trying to finesse things and trying to like distort things in my life and all for my personal gain at a certain point in my life. I was on the take because I had been hurt, you know?
Mm,
And so now I was having a chance to reflect on all that, on how many people I had hurt, not through this same way, but in other ways. And I was like, where am I been dishonest? And and also when I did that, I had this realization of like the guy that molested me, he he might have thought that he was helping me. He was like passing on something that was like an understanding of like a rite of passage or something, you know. He might have thought that he was doing me a favor. My scenario was that. Mine might be different than yours, but mine was sort of like a big brother almost kind of thing. Um, and uh, and so I looked at that and I also was like, he didn't invent molestation, this guy.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
You don't just fuck around and become somebody who knows how to do that or that's a shown thing.
Yeah, somebody taught you this.
It all started somewhere. And so here I was able to look at this guy in the same way that I was able to look at my own innocence, through my life story of like, oh yeah, I lied to people and cheated and all that stuff because I had certain innocences taken from me. And I was just on the taken life now. And I also didn't believe in myself enough to where I wanted you to believe a story about me that wasn't true. So you could look at all of the ways that I hurt people and see the innocence in there too. So I was able to exonerate this person and forgive him in this lifetime. So much so that I heard he was having a tough time in life and they become a drug addict and all this stuff. I hadn't seen him in years. And I had all the same stuff of like, I don't ever want him in my room with my kids and that type of stuff. But I heard he was down and out and I had worked through this and I'd really forgiven him. And I called him and I offered to listen to him of just like what was going on in his life without even addressing it. And I meant it all. I knew that I could show up, and this is love. This is how love was the author of the molestation that happened to me, is because I become an instrument of love, giving back to those areas that hurt. And I'm active in my participation in my community, the larger community of this world, but really mainly right here in my home, where it starts. And we want to protect our children from this ever happening to them again. But the only way that I found that we can really do that, because at a certain point you can't be around your kids, is you make sure they know they're loved, you know, make sure they absolutely know that they're loved and that they're listened to. And they're not going to want to gamble with their life. And they're going to want to stay out of negative situations that might, a lot of people find themselves in situations where they gamble with their lives because they don't have much to lose.
Mm.
But when you love your child and you equip them with the knowledge of like, hey, don't ever go any places with people. Like, there's no reason adults should talk to you if you're ever alone. There's
Yeah.
no good reason for an adult to talk to make a conversation with a child when the parent isn't there.
Hey,
It's just
I'm gonna say like it's you hit on a couple of things, but far as that, if I'm out with my kids and we're in the grocery store and someone says hi to my kids don't say shit, right?
uh,
And I have to tell people like, yo, sorry, my kids don't. They're not. It's not that they're being rude. It's
mm,
just our level of protection. You don't know that person, and the thing is, why do you feel so comfortable speaking to my kid? You know what I'm saying? Like,
it's
don't
just
fucking talk to my kid. And I want to circle back is that one thing that helped me, and I think I told you this before. One with my situation with being molested, and it wasn't just one time. It was multiple times from different people.
mm,
Even if I didn't understand that it was molestation then, I understand that it was molestation now because I wasn't in control and I really didn't have no say so. But um
right.
one thing that assists me, and this sounds so fucking crazy when I say it out loud, but I can sit here and look at those people and I can say, I love you.
Mm,
I love you. It's an honor that you did this to me. right?
Mm,
And that's so dark and weird, and it's so hard to hear it, but it's hard to say it, but it's the truth.
yeah.
Because this pain that you give me, this pain that you given me, this
Yeah.
burden that I carried around my life to the point where I was questioning, although I always liked women, I always wondered if because I was molested by a man as a child,
Yeah.
did that, like, am I gay? Like do I have to put gay on all my boxes even though I like women because this happened to me? Like, you know what I'm saying?
Right. Yeah.
And then that developed into me being a people pleaser and then becoming a hoe and telling people like, yeah, I fuck this girl, I fuck this girl, I could fuck these girls, and start treating,
Overcompensated.
just to prove my masculinity to my
Right.
friends, being a people pleaser.
Mhm.
Um, but now I can say I love you because you taught me a valuable lesson. And the valuable lesson is to protect my children.
Mhm.
And then I wanna go back to what you said is like for me, I am an extremist, even though I hate extremists. Um I tell my
Or
daughter,
extremists like you who are aware that it's not the ideal circumstance to be
yeah,
one.
I tell my daughter, I say to her, I say, I just want you to know if anything ever happened to you. I'm gonna go extreme. We might get canceled for this, but I told her I was like, look, if you ever got kidnapped, I'm gonna find you, and it's gonna sound crazy, but I'm gonna go to the White House with a sign that says "Find my fucking daughter, or we die." Right?
Mm.
This I'm
Mhm.
giving you the PG-13 version of what I told her,
Okay.
and the thing about it is that because I'm an extremist, I mean this from the urgency of I am here to protect you with whatever force that I have to obtain.
Yeah.
And if there is someone out there who harmed my child, who robbed my child of that innocence, like I was, like you was,
Yeah.
um, I'm gonna kill their family.
Oh,
Right. And the crazy thing, like, I don't want to do that. I love the human existence. I love everything in the aspect, but because I love my child, I'm the
uh,
type of guy is that if I found out something like this happened to my child, I'd rip your body open while you're alive and eat your eyeballs out your head with a fork. That's how dark this is. But then you have to sit here and say,
uh,
is he still of God?
yeah.
I
Yeah.
am. I am because this is love. And so that I
Sure.
never get in that situation, this is why I have to do the podcast. This is why I
Yeah.
have to tell my daughter, like, hey, like, be conscious of your surroundings. Hey, if you and my oldest is 17, I got six kids, but my oldest, she's 17, and I say, hey, if you're gonna go out with your friends, make sure you're driving. Never take a drink from someone else. If you are in a room with two guys and they're trying to lock that door, because I've been in those rooms. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? I've been
Yeah.
in a room with a group of friends and there's a girl and I'm like, yo, I gotta go. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? Like
Yeah.
as a teenage boy, I don't think that we as men acknowledge that we've been in weird rooms where
Uh-huh.
it's like, yo, are you sure she's okay with this? All right, I'm out of here. And so knowing that side of it, I tell my daughter, I'm like, look, I'm gonna be honest with you. You gotta do what you gotta do. So, hey, if I
Yeah.
give you a pistol, hey, you know what I'm saying? Out of the protection of you,
Sure.
I rather you protect yourself and then we sort it out than to let that happen to you and then you fall down the loop that I've went through, but worse,
Yeah.
because you weren't prepared or because you're you're a woman and this affects you differently from then how it affected me. And
Well, no,
so,
this is your mind, and I don't think anybody can be an expert on what your circumstances have been like in life
yeah,
and why you've just made the statement that you just made, you know. I wouldn't try to begin to take it apart or disagree with it or anything like that. It's, this is a certain level of your truth based on where you've come from,
yeah,
And the only thing that I can offer as a teaching around this, which doesn't contrast any of your narrative about this at all, just the sort of mechanics of the universe. I
Mm-hmm.
just want to
Let's do
describe
it.
that in the only thing that's limiting that I can see from an outside perspective, not being in your story, is that you don't know what you do. You actually don't know what you do. This right now, this plan that you have of eating the eyeballs and and all that stuff, like there's fresh information
Yeah,
and fresh intelligence in every single moment.
absolutely.
And we can think that we know who we are
Of
and how we
course.
respond to anything.
Mm,
But there's the grace of every moment having its own bit of information, and you got to be there.
yep.
And who knows how you would react if
Yeah, 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 of course. This is all metaphoric because you put in certain situations and you thought that you would react this way, but
yeah,
then you do this. And that's the hard truth is that you don't know what you would do in these situations. You just have this idea of, for me, extremism, because when I think about my situation and I think about my child, right?
yeah,
Are the like it's how we love our children. When you love your child, it's
yeah,
like it's like my child is perfect. You know what I'm saying? Like I
yeah,
when I see my child, I see God loving me.
right.
And so you have this thought, and you're
Yes,
you're exactly right. I 100% agree. Like you truly don't know what you would do in that situation. The only thing is, the feeling of what you experience and the
right.
feeling of possibly dealing with that feeling again.
Yeah. No, and also your descriptives, as extreme as they are, you know, uh, within the culture at the moment. I mean, A24 is like the biggest, production, uh, um, film production company, or one of them out there, and
Yeah.
there's a lot of horror out there. And so the iconography of your description to her is like fits in the culture. But really what you're saying is, and what you're really attempting to convey to her is, I love you this much. You have no idea how
Absolutely.
much I love you. I
You
love
know
you
it.
so much I would go to lengths that are horror.
Mm.
I would go to lengths of horror to be able to seek um, peace in the
For
end.
you, for you, for you,
Right.
your piece. Yeah. So
Right. And you wanted to know that. And so you're telling her that. And I can't deny that, I know that my daughter and my son both know that I love them. And that means the world to me. That's to me the greatest security. That's my security of them moving in this world and being in this world that can seem so dangerous, and being in those teen phases right now
mhm.
where they're young adults. There's no two ways about it. And I have trust with them because I trust their minds and hearts, because I know they're loved, and they're not seeking love in all the wrong places.
Mm,
And that's the main thing. And that's what we can do here at home.
mhm.
That's what I'm doing here at home. And, of course, from my home, I also zoom out to mentees around the world, and get to do sessions and talk about these types of things and resolve trauma. But my immediate world is the dojo. It's the sterile environment where I practice. It's in every way of how I speak to my partner. It's in every way of how I take out the garbage.
Mm.
It's like, is there aggression here? What am I so angry about in this moment taking out the garbage? Like, why am I, I get to look at all that here, and I see where love is absent, or where there's a misunderstanding within myself. And I get to resolve that by having conscious awareness over my daily actions, developed through meditation and all the common ways. For me, I'm a 20-year practicing Tibetan Buddhist. And
Mm.
to speak of the context of harm, I learned something about myself today in a session that I'd never known. Um, the other night, my partner and I, we when we're watching my mom's place, we sleep in separate beds because we both kind of get up in the middle of the night, and and since we're visiting somewhere else and there's these two separate bedrooms, like it's kind of like we're like give each other a pass on not disturbing each other and want each other to have like solid sleep. So we sleep in separate rooms.
That's dope.
Um, yeah, and it's like you don't have that's another thing. Like you don't have to do the performative. What does this mean if we're not sleeping in the same bed? You know, it's there's a trust and love and that can be accomplished. And anyway, so she was sleeping in a separate room, and it's the middle of the night, like 2 in the morning, and she wakes up and she's like, I heard something. And this isn't her deal. She's not like one of these light sleepers who's like always hearing something. This was first time for me being woken up. And she's like, I heard something. It sounds like somebody's trying to get in. And so I I don't know where this confidence comes from, but and I sleep naked. Sorry for the image.
Hey, me too. Sometimes it's like, yeah. Anyways, yeah, it's
But
great to sleep naked.
yeah, totally. And I also one of the fun things about, and I was joking around about this last night with my partner, but because we were joking about like, how do you sleep at night when we're not together? Like, what do you do in the bed? And I was like, well, I do the kind of sleep Jordan where I'm like legs out, like almost like that. You
On the stomach or on the back?
know, I'm just like like picture the Air Jordan sign, but like laying flat. I kind of just do that for
I do the
whatever.
number four. Like I'm a four. My wife, she's like, you sleep like a number four. I'm like, oh, okay,
That's
out
cute.
of here. Anyways,
So,
but
so,
yeah.
anyway, so we're I get up and I just go looking for what it is. And I've faced my mortality enough psychologically and I've righted the wrongs in my life and created some harmony in my family that there's this courage, I'll call it, I guess, or there's this fearlessness. And the Tibetan word is jigme, is fearless. And I just jumped up out of bed and I go investigate. And I can't find anything, but we're in the desert right now, so it's like there's a little bit of a ominous, if you let it be, kind of a, I don't know, you just don't know what's in the dark and it's quiet and it's so quiet, it's not in the city, so I do a thorough investigation. I come back and she's like, "Well, I'm gonna sleep in here with you." And I'm like, "Great, great." So we climb into bed and she was like, "I don't know. I guess maybe it could have been a dream, but I heard it twice. I heard it one time, it woke me up, and then I sat there for a minute and I heard it again." And I was like, "It's all right. We'll just go to sleep." And I'm laying in bed and I don't know if I'm gonna get back to sleep. And there's an old me prior to doing the egoic work that might have been upset about this. Oh, what this means for my tomorrow. Oh my God. Like, I'm not going to get good sleep tonight and blah, blah, blah. But like, this is happening. This is it's an occurrence that doesn't need how tomorrow is going to be affected. This is like to keep this pure and to keep a relationship pure. It's like these things they happen, so I have this attitude about it where I'm not worried about how my next day is going to be. And we climb into bed and a couple minutes later I hear the sound and it's like something rattling a door or something.
Mm.
And I got to tell you, just to chill, it didn't stop me from jumping up. I jumped up again and walking around. I'm trying to figure out where the sound came from. And I get this intuition that there's this one room that the door is shut. And I'm like, am I going to really open this door? And, where there was a window to the outside and maybe somebody climbed in or whatever. And I was like, yeah. So I open up the door and my mom's cat runs out.
Mm.
So so that's what it was. The cat was rattling the door because it was in a locked room and it had been in there a couple hours in the middle of the night and it was like, "Hey, I'm in here." And my student today asked me, "What is a Buddhist like? What would you have done? How would you greet an intruder?"
Mm.
It was a great question. It was the first time I'd ever been asked.
I want to hear this.
All right. So my mother, who was viciously molested by her father, sexually abused for most of her childhood. She is the one who really started um, this idea of God being love in my life. She's the one that showed me that love is behind everything in the universe because of her ability to heal and forgive her own father for things that were far worse than what I experienced, and on repeat for years until she was old enough to fight him off. And that's in her youth. And she in her teen years worked with the notion of love healing this situation. And it's not a forgetting love. It's not a all things are forgotten. It's just forgiven,
Mhm.
but not forgotten. And so she can be free and not feel like in this world that everyone's going to try and harm her, you know? But you don't forget also that people can harm you. So she worked with it beautifully, and later on in life she even took this out into the world, and as a young girl hitchhiking in the 70s, she got picked up on a couple of occasions with people who had nefarious ideas about what they were going to do to her. And she, on one of these occasions, this guy picked her up, and she had a bad feeling from the start. And she started talking to him about God being love, and started talking about all these universal truths that she was finding in her spiritual household. And she, and the guy said, "Hey, keep talking, please." And so she kept talking about her experience, just like how you and I are right now, just talking about the truths and that we're exploring and what can be healed. And and he at one point just said, "When I picked you up, I was going to hurt you." He said, and now I just want to take care of you. He's like, "So I'm going to take you to the next stop." And he gave her some money, and he made sure that she found a safe next ride. And something happened there where she talked him out of it by just talking about universal truths. And there's this confidence that maybe, who knows what it was, who knows what did the job, but I have that in my head that my mom talked a rapist out of assaulting her by speaking about God being love. And I'm not saying this would work for everybody either.
Yeah,
This
yeah,
isn't
yeah, yeah.
the universal answer, but just knowing that there's that possibility in the world, that kind of intoxicated my youth in the way of believing that these things also can happen. And so, bringing us back to the story here, when I was asked what I would do, I always lead with love. I always lead with love. Now that I look like a hippie, you know, and I'm a Buddhist, but I will say that what I found out today when I was asked that question is I would lead with love, but I would kill the person if I needed to, if it was going to be one of us
So
getting
I
harmed.
would end with love too.
Yeah, exactly. Because here's the thing. In this case, or where I said if I needed to, and I've never used violence in my life. I'm one of these people who's somehow escaped. I've had it done to me, but I haven't ever hit anybody. I used to have dreams about swinging at people's faces, and I could never connect because I don't have the reference.
Mm.
So I've never done that, but I know this about myself, that my Buddhist practice actually has shown me that there's something called idiot compassion, which would just be like, "Oh no, go ahead, you broke into my house, go ahead and kill me," and continue on this hurt that you're in and this neurosis that you're in, and just go ahead because I'm a non-self, egoless Buddhist practitioner and I believe in non-harm. Sometimes the most loving thing you can do, and in this case, I think that one of the most loving things that I could do would be to end this or stop this from happening, and that's the most compassionate thing I could do.
That's deep.
And I don't even know, I don't know also because I got to show up to that and cross that bridge when I come to it,
As you
because
should.
I don't, but I was interested in finding that within myself. Like, oh, yeah, yeah, I rather than kill my partner or myself just because somebody's having a string of incidents in their lives and they wandered into this house. Well, however, it can be stopped and benefit be the majority. It's not a perfect science having to end somebody's life,
Yeah.
something I hope I never have the opportunity to
Absolutely.
do.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
But what's the greater benefit here? I always have to look at, universally, where's the most benefit? And
Absolutely.
that's how I operate.
Yeah, absolutely. I like how you said that. I like how you put it together. Like I said, I'm an extremist, so I'd be like, yo, you fucked with the right house. That's what I would say. So, the thing about that is that's so powerful that you say that, because I like, although I understand I understand manifestation. So the things that I'm saying, there's no
Mhm.
conviction in my spirit or my vibration where I'm bringing this on me, saying, "Come on, yeah, let's do
Great.
this." I'm not. That's not what I'm saying. Is that
Good to
I'm an
say.
extremist, and based upon my upbringing, right, and the fights that I had to overcome, whether it was an abusive father or seeing my mom abused or uh, people breaking in my house and robbing me gunpoint while holding my child. Um, at that point where I was when I me now looking at that, I look at myself as like I was a coward.
Mm.
And because no one ever taught me what it was like to lead from the front. And
Mhm.
in those extreme situations, there's a side of me, and I tell my wife all the time, because she's like, you're a teddy bear, fuck
Mm.
you talk about doing all this crazy stuff. You're a teddy bear. And I tell her, I was like, I'm so amazed that you think of me like that, right? Like I like that. But
Yeah.
there is this small little twinkle in her eye where she knows I'm her protector. And
Right.
if
That's right.
anybody, hey, it could be my mom,
Yeah.
anybody was to harm my wife,
Uh-huh.
even disrespect my wife, they're
Uh-huh.
going to see a side of me in which I don't normally show. That sits in the back of my mind and says, you wanna die today? Like, you know what I'm saying? That sits in the back. But it goes back to what you're saying, is that love is the motivation that
Right.
sits behind all this. All this is truly out of love. I'm not going out of a place where I'm like, I'm just gonna go kill people. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm this, and that. That's not my perspective. But the fact is that in these situations, you have to find, excuse me, what love is in that situation. So if you did, as your practice and whatnot, your job as her partner, her husband, her man, whatever it is to protect.
Yeah.
And so the thing about it is, if something happens to you, that's one thing. But if
Mhm.
something happens to her, well, that's another thing. You know what I'm saying? So
Yeah.
would you rather deal with this one situation, get it over with, or would you rather let this shit continue to happen? And
Yeah,
I think
that's
that,
the thing about love is that it's impersonal. The love that I'm talking about is impersonal. It's not how love shows up to me and
yeah,
mine.
yeah.
It's like, what's the greater context of love here?
Hmm.
Where is the greater benefit in the world? And a couple things. One, earlier you were talking about leading,
Hmm.
and one of the things I wanted to say then is that the president you said you gave as an example, not our president, but just that
Just
position,
presidency, yeah.
presidency. The term itself, and I got turned on to this recently. The term itself, what it used to just mean is to preside. You're not a
Mm,
leader, actually, of the country.
I like
There were
that.
no roles at all for the president. And they were just kind of the overseer, but they had no say in how things go. That's how presidential.
So
To
he's
pre
a shift leader. You're a shift leader. You're not the manager and you're not the owner,
That's right.
Buckaroo. You're the
Right.
supervisor. Yeah.
Right. The supervisor overseeing the whole thing, but just somebody needed to be in that position. And we all like to have some idealist that reflected something, but they didn't have any say over things really.
Hmm.
And so they were just there to preside, and that's the kind of leadership that I feel like that we need, is just like some overseer of the greater context of good in every situation. And I've been able to take that to a really impersonal place while still being true to those that I love, and not going like, well, hey honey, if you get killed, like, if it's for the greater good, but at the same time it would be my designation in life to understand, even if I couldn't in that moment, how the greater context, if she was taken, how where love is in this situation too. I'm committed to that in life. And so that's my message, that love is the author of the universe. That's what I mean by it goes beyond my personal ideas of love too, and just what's the greater good. So that's one thing. And the other thing is, when people die, there's a potency. When people get hurt, the only positive thing, and you were kind of talking about this earlier, and so was I about this, is that my Tibetan teacher told me that he didn't tell me actually. I once watched him guide a friend of mine who's lost their child, whose child died suddenly at 20 years old, who was just the light of his life, as are his children, but he lost this child, and he, how people try and make it better with their words. He really wasn't having any of that for years. Like, you don't get to tell me how I'm like, this is so personal that I don't appreciate you trying to wrap this up into a nice thing for me. And so he was on his own journey with meaning. And I feel like we all are. And we should honor that within each other, and watch it when somebody's grieving, as you know, to really meet them where they're at, and make sure, you're not just trying to make yourself feel better.
Mm.
Give this advice. But anyway, so my teacher, I didn't know if my friend who had lost his child, and when he was sitting with my teacher, who's like this Tibetan Lama. He's got like, so he's like a rock star almost, kind of. He has like sideburns and long hair, and he wears like jewelry, and he's the most humble man though I've ever met, and he's my living example. And so, sitting in this precarious situation of watching my friend who has this loss, and my Tibetan teacher who's the example of wisdom, sitting in a room, and I'm like, is my friend going to tell him about his son? It's like, is he going to present this to somebody? I never seen him really present it to somebody for meaning, you know? And I watched this happen. And there's no connection between these two individuals. Like, they were not student and teacher. There was an openness in the room. And my friend told him that his son had passed away. And my teacher said, when people are young and they die, there's a certain potency to their death that you don't get when somebody's older and who's lived a full life. You just go, if somebody goes, hey, Eric died, and you go, oh yeah, Eric was in his 60s, 70s, or 80s or something, you go, oh really? Oh, okay.
Yeah, he lived his life. Yeah.
Yeah, he lived his life, and you kind of go, oh yeah. But when you hear about a young person passing away or being assaulted, you know, there's all this, it activates us. And it can be an extremely uh, inspiring time to create change in the world. And people use that energy, the potency of, "Oh, really? Oh my gosh. Wait, oh no. Oh my God. No, no." All of that. They use all of that, and it motivates some sort of change that brings benefit into the world in most cases. The potency of the passing. 9/11, you talked about it as having that potency.
Mm-hmm.
It had this potency to see a story unfolding here and to be emotionally affected and have it kind of wake you up. So there's utility there that, of course, we would rather there not be that
Of
situation,
course. Of
but
course.
that's the way it affected you in your life. It inspired another way of looking at things. And so it was very potent. And, once again, not trying to bypass the severity of these acts,
Yeah.
or
Yeah. Yeah.
there's a place that this is just what can be made for them. And I watched my friend take in that information from the teacher and say that his life would bring his passing would bring about great change. He's not making a prediction, like a psychic prediction. He's just going, this is the way these things go.
Mm-hmm.
This is the only
Awareness.
good thing about it. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
He affected a lot of lives, and those lives are going to go on and change lives, you know? And so that's the love as the author thing behind everything.
Yeah, that's deep. That's definitely I had lost like 7 people in 4 years. And excuse me again. When it came to like understanding death, I had to flip how I perceived it. Before it was because it started with my best friend. He had died, and my mind was so wrecked. I was like, how can I move on? I've said this before, but he was kind of, I don't know if you're familiar with like Pokemon, but he was my Gary and I'm Ash. He was my rival, but we're like best friends. You know what I'm saying? Like, yo, I
Yeah.
got this new Pokemon, and it was more on the music scale for us. And so when he died, it wrecked my mind so much. And to this day, his mom is grieving, and I've tried to help her with my perspective. But what has helped me after losing him, then losing my grandmother, and then a few other friends, um, my perspective now is that I have gratitude because the experience in which I've had with them in my experience
Yeah.
was one of a kind. My
Right.
experience with them will not be your experience, and whatever memories that we shared that made this person so important in my life. When I close my eyes and I remember that, I can be thankful for that experience because that experience has became a accessory, right,
Hmm. Hmm.
to my life, to how I present myself. So with my best friend, he's the reason why I have face tattoos on my face. He's the
Mm.
reason why I had locks. He's the reason why I'm more confident now. If he didn't pass, I'd probably still be a little discouraged when it comes to speaking my truth or talking the way that I talk, or even just being artistic the way that I am now, in comparison of being complacent and scared to have tattoos and be this way. And so when these situations happen with grieving, my one first thing I do is tell my mind that they're off in their world and they're living their life, and they're just not near their phone. They're too busy. I'm busy doing me, they're busy doing them. But
Uh,
then I say is, um I'm grateful that we have those memories, because when I see them again, when we are aligned, because I believe that source in every human being is like water inside of these different materials. So you pour it in
yeah.
here, it's just exchanged. But when I go back to the source, the bigger source of water, uh,
Uh-huh.
we will connect, and it will be like not seeing your cousin for so
Yeah.
long, but the conversation still starts like, yo, you remember when we were 8 years old and we used to
Yeah.
jump off the bunk beds? And it's that same feeling. And
Yeah.
so I
Yeah.
can't
When you said
wait to
wreck,
align.
I'm sorry, finish. Go ahead.
I was gonna say, I can't wait to align and get back with that. And I'm gonna hold on to those memories and cherish those memories, but also experience everything that I'm experiencing moving forward, so that when we do align, I can share my growth, and then we can compare our stories
That's
mentally.
beautiful. When you said wrecked, it wrecked your mind. The thought came into my mind of that you're now intoxicated by him.
Hmm.
This wrecked of the mind thing, it's like, when I said that lives are potent, and or my teacher said that, it's like potent THC or something, and then you get intoxicated by it. And it's an intoxication that doesn't go away, this particular intoxication of the memory of this person. And it's like they become more alive than they were actually when they were here, because we can visit with them anytime. They kind of become on demand or something, like
Yeah.
how we order a movie. They're
Hmm.
just airwaves. And once again, this isn't a bypass method, this is a actuality of things, is that, somebody thought they could kill John Lennon or Martin Luther King, completely made them more powerful.
Biggie
More
and
powerful than,
Tupac.
what's that? And
There's so many of them.
list goes on.
So yeah.
Absolutely. But so you couldn't kill them, you made them stronger. There's no erasing somebody on the earth. And that's what I would, if I was there in that moment where there'd been savagery to your family and you're looking to go eat the eyeballs of the thing, I would point that out. You're only going to make them stronger.
I'm gonna make this guy the guy who got his eyeballs ate out on the internet, and now his family's getting donations, and You're that's exactly right. That's I mean, for sure,
You know
for
what I
sure.
mean? And
That's
that's the
deep.
thing that people don't realize is that there is no erasing something, you know?
Yeah.
You try and do that in the body, and I have a lot of um trepidation around telling anybody how to view profound loss. And it sounds like you've had some profound losses. And so this is more general, my general way of looking at it, which doesn't have to, and I don't think that it's kind of set up to not ruffle the feathers, you know, to like be an add-on to whatever your belief is and whatever your process is. And those are my favorite kind of spiritual teachings or mentors um, uh, or modalities, you know, are the kind that are not trying to compete with what you already know. They're just trying to add to, and they also don't take themselves so seriously that they think that they have the only answer. And
As it should be. It definitely, and that's why back to the original it always is always like an infinity loop. It comes back around.
uh,
Um
you're good at that too.
it's
Break.
a it's always being the student, you
Right,
know, and
right,
being open to hear things. Like I view that when people teach me something, it's always a reflection of God speaking to me in code. So you might say something, like I said, rewatching that movie, you might say something now, and then I
right,
go and edit this, and I'm like, yo, he said that? That was deep. And there's some things that you say right now that I won't even understand
right.
until 5 years from now. And I'm like,
Right.
yo, Jaymee said this
Uh,
whole time, and this was this key that I needed that I've been missing so long that I can add to my life. And
right.
that's the thing is like no one has the right,
Mhm.
correct, on point answer.
Right.
Sometimes you have to move things around based upon your experience. And it's so beautiful when you can do that. There's someone who went through what I went through, but they try to give me knowledge and I just can't align with it. But then someone who hasn't been through anything I've went through can tell me something and I can pick it out and say, oh shit, this can help me here. And so that's why
Yeah.
I said I'm always open. I love listening to someone's perspective because be, before it's a debate, it's an
Yeah.
opportunity for me to grow and say, what is this person saying? What is it that he's communicating with me that made me maybe feel slightly uncomfortable?
Yeah.
Why? Why did
Right.
it make me feel uncomfortable? What is it that I need to learn in this situation so that I can pass this lesson or understand this lesson? And so
Yeah.
when you're breaking down all these things, even if it didn't align with my direct
Yeah.
perspective,
Right.
I still I quantum stand it. Um
Yeah. That's
because it makes total sense, bro. You
yeah.
do have to lead with love. Love is the author because love can mean something on such a deep level to someone differently from you and I. Like that person that may have broken your house,
Yeah.
they may have needed something for this family member and this was the last resort, get a quick fix scheme, and this is what it was, and their child may not be in the greatest situation, so they had to do this. That was love, but then you came back with your love. And
Yeah.
so that's why, back to what we said, there
Yeah.
is no bad
Right.
person.
That's right.
It's
Did you
just
know the
love.
Shakespeare, the Shakespeare quote, there is no bad nor good, only thinking makes it so.
That's beautiful. I haven't heard that one.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm not a real sort of Shakespeare person either. Well, but it's at the beginning of one of the spiritual books that I was raised on. I was raised in something called Christian Science, and which isn't Scientology, but it has similar spelling, But Christian Science is sort of the scientific study of Christ's words in the New Testament. And it's gotten this status in this country of it sort of started the New Thought movement, which led to things like A Course in Miracles and agape and all of that, religious science, the Church of Religious Science, Ernest Holmes, and
Yeah.
Science of Mind. It started with Christian Science, and this woman founded this religion in the late 1800s in the Massachusetts area after spending a lifetime in pain and illness. And she started working with homeopathics and found some good stuff there. But she was like, wait, I want to get to the what's in the homeopathics, what's under, what like the thing that's under healing elements, material elements. Like, what is that? You know, and wanted to get to know that. And she had this revelation and um, wrote down interpretations of the New Testament and from this place, this open place, and formed this religion called Christian Science, where they don't believe in doctors. So I was raised not going to see doctors and getting pulled out of like classes because of religious differences. Like we're going to do science, we're going to dissect a frog, and they're going to tell us the reality of the human body. And so I would get pulled out of class when it wasn't cool to, you know. Now it's like anybody who wants an excuse to get out of class, and even the vaccinations, you know, during the pandemic, you know, people were doing religious exemptions, and a lot of them were not lifelong, you
Yeah.
know.
Yeah.
And I was raised three generations in this thing, so I was already the weird kid, and I didn't have any vaccinations until COVID came, and the only reason I got one shot was
I was
because
about
my
to
son
ask.
said I was going to die.
Cause what?
He was worried that I was going to die after about a year and a half of the pandemic going.
Oh wow.
And then they were talking about Delta, and he's like a teenage kid, and he's like hearing all this stuff, and he knows dad was raised this way, and he knows that dad has a special thing around like, you know,
Yeah.
healing, all that stuff. And, you know, and there's an indestructible quality even to dad. And he's like, but still, like, I'm worried. So he said, Dad, please, I'm losing sleep. You know, would you get the shot? You know, please, like, I'm just worried you're going to die. And so that was me taking the bullet for my son, basically, you
Good
know.
job. Good job. I like it. I'm
Yeah, I
proud of
did.
you. That
Thank
takes
you.
courage for
It
sure.
was the first shot I'd had in my life, you know. And anyway, what's cool about, I don't think I would hold on to the tenets of Christian Science. I'm not a Christian Scientist. I'm a multi-faith, if anything. I'm just wherever
Same.
the universal truth. But I'm a committed Tibetan Buddhist, but that's not a religion, it's a philosophy. And so, but anyway, Christian Science, yeah. So we're talking about that. So, um, going through life, I watched all of my mother's siblings. She has five siblings. They're all alive. My grandmother's 96. She's the one that brought Christian Science into the household originally. And she runs her own business still and is like a go-getter. Is like nonstop. Now, I can as Christian Science got weird to me as I grew older because it's just like, oh, going to church. I don't want to go wear a suit and go sit and like there's no free thinking there either. It's kind of just like just anyway, it started to become my parents' thing, but I could not argue with the fact that everybody's alive, nobody's had shots and all that stuff, and everybody's alive. So there's a kind of scientific mind that could go into that and go like, all right, my chances are pretty good. Just kind of going along with certain ideologies and questioning, you know, what the world prescribes for healing, especially from a corporate standpoint, and having my uh, you know, discrimination around like, I don't know if I want to take that, or no, I don't want, you know, I had that throughout my life, and it was backed up on the research of my family being okay and me being healthy. So by the time I got that shot anyway, it was I could forfeit all of that because this is your child, and it's your child saying I'm scared and I'm losing sleep, and there was something I could do about that, even though it went against, you know, how I was raised. So I was able to do that, and um, ultimately, within Christian Science, it's sort of the idea that God is love. It's the same love that we're talking about, and this isn't an ad for Christian Science at all. Like it's kind of a
I'm about
anything.
to research more of it, but yeah, let's do it.
Yeah, it's more of a dwindling census any at the religion. I mean, at the churches these days. And but it started something in the country where we can start to believe that mind creates all, and that there's one universal mind.
Hmm.
And that's like being an idea in the mind of God, in the same way that you were talking about being a dream of God. It's that exact thing.
Like the Hermetic principles and whatnot.
Yes,
Yep.
exactly. I'm glad you know about those. That's, studying Hermetic principles and studying Christian Science early in my life, you can see where, oh, they're talking about the same thing here. They're just like the region is different. And so the
That's
like,
all. That's all it ends up being. Truthfully,
yeah,
that's all it is.
yeah, totally. So this is just the idea that that God is perfect and God is love and God is in everything. And it's where we step outside of it with thought and we think that there's an error going on, there's something like wrong, like illness or anything like that. It's us seeing ourselves outside of the idea of God's love, and that we can correct that in our thought.
Mm.
When we correct that with our thought, then the body corresponds. You don't fix it from the outside, you fix it from the inside, your thought and your limitations about things. And so in this Christian Science book, in their main book, when you open it up, the first quote
You sure
is
this isn't an ad?
no, the Shakespeare thing. It's that Shakespeare quote is in the
Oh yeah,
beginning.
yeah, yeah,
No, of course not.
yeah,
Definitely not that. Like I hate selling anything, but this is just what I was raised with, and it's an interesting thing that you know, I've had an opportunity to look at from the inside and see how it's very similar to what I believe in Tibetan Buddhism and in the Tao
yeah.
and metaphysical. It's just a metaphysical idea that, you know, that the world is perfect until we think,
Mm.
everything's perfect until thought gets involved, and then that's where dualism, as you were talking about, is created, you
Hmm.
know. So it was an
Well,
interesting way to grow up, certainly.
I like this. I ain't gonna take too much more of this. This has been extremely powerful. Um, before I let you go, before we end this, I told you about it. Two things I need from you is a powerful quote people can apply to their life and a book reference.
Okay, well, it's not the Christian Science book for the book.
I'm still gonna
So
check it out. I'm still gonna check
yeah,
it out.
though I also not, it's not I can't say anything negative about it, but I'm also not here to sell it. Let's start with the book.
You're supposed to write this down, Jamie.
No, well, I mean it's fresh information, it's fresh moment,
I know, I know, I know. I'm messing with you.
So, and I never out of inspiring things to share. It's an inexhaustible resource because I'm out of the way enough. And I wanted to just sit with you and go like, well, what's the feeling here? What could I recommend? Let me just recommend two books.
Let's do it.
One is uh, one is The Kabbalion,
I love it.
Kybalion, Hermetic Teachings.
Yes.
These are Hermetic teachings that three people called the three initiates who chose to remain anonymous because this was information that originated in Egypt prior to all religions.
Hmm.
And it's where all spiritual traditions are said to be the epicenter, is Hermes or Herms, or however you say it. And this information that's in this book about how the universe operates, so-called operates, the mechanics of it, including things like the law of attraction or the principle of vibration, or
Hmm.
all these things come
Law of
from this mechanic.
correspondence. Yeah.
That's right. That's right. So, so in this book, it kind of explains all that in a way that's actually pretty understandable if you're a novice spiritually, and a scientist could get into it. And I've been able to pass this book on to many people in different religious backgrounds and have them get down. So that's a great book. And these three people, the three initiates, created this book and put it out. And this information had never been put out before that they released it. And they chose to remain anonymous because it had always been in this tradition from the lips of the teacher to the ears of the student, passed in an unbroken stream for thousands of years. And now it's in a book. And they say when this book comes to you that you're ready for it. Just like the student is ready when the teacher appears, or the teacher is ready when the student appears. So that's one book. And it sounds like you read it.
I did. I now I want to read it again, but yeah.
It's one of those for sure. Um, and the other one's the Stillness Speaks by Eckhart Tolle. That book is like nature is talking about spirituality. And a lot of people call their spirituality nature, or they say, I want to be more like nature. And I'm one of them. It's the greatest role model. And in this book, Eckhart's out of the way enough to be able to tie in all the different faiths at times and also remove all those. And it kind of reads like the Tao Te Ching, where you can just open it up and any little paragraph, doesn't
Sticks
matter.
out. Yeah.
And it's a beautiful book that's pretty thin. That's one of those. It's not a start to finish necessarily. You could chew on the tiniest bit of it forever, you know. So that. And then is it a teaching? Is that right?
Quote.
Quote. Oh, okay.
Powerful quote.
Powerful quote. Um, well, besides love is the author of the universe, which we covered plenty on here, is um, I became what I needed in the world. I became what I needed in the world for other people. That's my quote. I thought at one point about who would have been nice to have in my life at all these lost points. What kind of big brother or big sister or any of that? What would they have said if I could have this person in my life? How would they have comforted me? How would they have encouraged me? I looked at all that and I became that. That's been my role model, is becoming all of what I didn't have for other people.
I love it. I really appreciate it. That's extremely powerful.
Mm.
Um, to our listeners, if you enjoyed this conversation, as always, make sure you hit a like, a subscribe button. I'll drop all of Jaymee's links. Love is the author. Definitely check it out. It's a powerful podcast. Until next time, peace, love, and light.
Peace.
Let me stop it.